And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media. This is the Weekly Roundtable for October 3rd, 2021. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith and Frank Vajner. My opening statement, thank God hockey's back, except the Wings and Leafs are headed back to this stupid Atlantic division the way it's still been aligned since 2013. Gary Bettman and his PR squad are a bunch of lazy and inept hacks. Ed, you're next. Then we'll go to Frank. Ed, what's your opening statement?
My opening statement, you say thank God for hockey. I say thank God our college teams are doing well because the state of our state in terms of football will be an absolute more miserable mess than what it already is. All I got to say is same old Lions, guys.
Yep. Frank?
Well, my opening statement is things went better than expected this year for the Detroit Tigers, and both college teams in the state have another weekend of taking care of business and move to 5-0.
Yes, they do. And before we get to them, this show is sponsored by the Viget Sports mobile app where great fans cover. Use the hashtag #GreatFansCover on social media to support the app. Download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Sign up and type in the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest of the letters being lowercase, including the letter B in the middle as in billionaire for Stables Media. Also, a shout out to Cali Tickets. Visit CaliTickets.com or call 877-225-8425 to purchase tickets to go see one of their featured events. Now, the Michigan Wolverines, first half was a close one, but then the Wolverines started to turn on the afterburners while Wisconsin was playing very sloppy on offense. And then Wisconsin's defense fell apart, and Michigan's offense really was giving the Badgers a beatdown. They beat Wisconsin 38-17. First win in Madison for the Wolverines since November 17th of 2001. So, Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, just an amazing win. There's got to be some reason it was an underdog win. First underdog win since I can't recall what it was, but anyway, Ed, floor is yours on this one.
Man, I have to say, in terms of piggybacking what you were saying, Taylor, to start off, in terms of underdog ranked as an underdog win, I think in terms of you want to say why they're an underdog, I think the performance against Rutgers has to be taken into consideration. And a lot of people very looking skeptical, and they of course remembered the other factors, the fact that they had not won in Camp Randall in 20 years, the fact that the last time that these two teams faced off, COVID or not, last season they did face off and Wisconsin absolutely smashed Michigan 49-11. All that was taken into consideration. The play of Cade McNamara coming into this game, rather. All that played a factor into what the bettors were feeling beforehand, but it's safe to say that those fears were quickly squelched by the time, midway in the third quarter, because the defense, remember, I'd said last week that I think Wisconsin will probably score no more than 10, maybe 13 points because I know how good Michigan's defense can and will be, and they proved that and then some. The true X factor to this was what was Michigan's offense was going to do. We saw in the first quarter so mind-numbingly frustrating where you think, okay, they're making progress. We like the aggression that they're showing in terms of going forward on fourth down, but some of the decision-making, whether it be the play calling of running it up the middle when it's very hard-pressed to do against a team the size of Wisconsin on either side of the ball, instead of attacking the edge, which I mentioned to you guys off air while I was watching the game itself, or again, the decision making or the in the moment decision making of McNamara, whether it be making an errant throw or not doing the keep once in a while, it's called a read option unless you keep it's not called a read option. You keep handing it off to the running back 9.5 times out of 10. So that's still something he has to work on. But I will say the fact that he was able to find guys in open space, found a real nice home and a real nice chemistry connection with Cornelius Johnson. Hooked them up with 2 touchdowns. This is a guy and frankly, they need it because remember, Ronnie Bell went down for the season in week 1 So that was already a thin wide receiving core that took a big hit when they lost essentially their best target on that, on that side. So other guys had to step up, and Cornelius Johnson stepped up in a big way. He had 2 touchdowns, made 2 great catches to get those 2 touchdowns, and I think he even had a catch that 2-point diversion. Also, conversely, Michigan, even though their constant need for going forward on 4th down, I think it was a part of mentally trying to establish something, establish an attitude. It worked out for the most part because aside for, like I said, that one stop that I thought was really bad early in the first quarter, they were quite effective on all the other 4th downs. Getting the necessary yardage, moving the ball down the field, and frankly, Wisconsin was not able to get off on them at all because I thought, McNamara was getting good protection, solid protection all around, and even though the running game wasn't as stout as you wanted it to be, the passing game more than made up for it. And I think once Cade found a way to finally settle in, that was all he needed to go to work because he knows his defense is going to keep him in this game. He just can't screw up. And we saw that happen play by play, moment by moment. He really showed out. And just, for good measure, if you want to say rub salt in the wounds, we also saw a glimpse of what the future could be because J.J. McCarthy, he came in and he threw an absolute bomb on the first pass that he was allowed to throw. So I know it's going to say, what's this mean? Are you going to potentially want to start or cause a QB controversy later on? I don't mind how JJ was used because at that point, the game was already over. You're going to give him some reps anyway. But it was interesting to note that there were certain calls or certain wrinkles where he was out there by design, either as a handoff or as a potential running option. So who knows? Maybe they keep that in their back pocket for later down the season against another opponent. But in terms of the offense, my goodness, they were rolling and clicking in that second half, making deep passes, getting key first downs, scoring almost at will. The defense, oh my goodness, what else can you say about this defense? The fact that they were able to get turnovers, get takeaways, the fact that they literally took Wisconsin starting QB, Graham Ertz, out of the game because Daxton Hill, remember, he got picked on by Mertz at the end of that first half. That's what led to that, momentum swinging touchdown that Wisconsin had to cut at 13-10. Daxton Hill was not pleased by that. So he took all that out on Wisconsin, specifically on Mertz in that third quarter by levied an absolutely nasty, vicious, but clean. I remember that clean hit on Mertz, cracked his ribs, knocked him out of the game. And once the backup came in, it was all said and done because the line just feasted and feasted and feasted, getting pressure, getting sacks, getting hits. And of course, that led to errant throws, bad decision making by the QB, whoever was in there. And Hill got himself an interception. So he had a critical sack and a big hit that knocked out Wisconsin starting QB. He had a crucial pass breakup on the third down when Wisconsin was trying to move the ball back down the field to get closer or at least potentially take the lead. And then he had an interception that helped seal the game. And, also special teams, I'm going to keep mentioning this over and over, but special teams are something that you do not dismiss. It came into factor again when Wisconsin, already having loads of special teams problems this season, had another one when miscommunication or just a bad bounce led to a live ball situation. Michigan recovered. No, they didn't turn into a touchdown, but it still turned into points nonetheless. So all that came in, factored into what was essentially as close to a complete team performance as you will see. This was not only the first, obviously the best performance on the road that I think I've seen in the Harbaugh era. This was also the first time in terms of betting odds, listing him as a true underdog, that a Jim Harbaugh coach team was able to get the win this time around, the outright win. So that's worth noting something. And Taylor, you mentioned something about how long, even since before Harbaugh, did something of this occur. This was 2013. You got to go back to 2013 when Brady Hoke was still here, the last time to see something like that happen for Michigan. So a lot of first win in Camp Randall in 20 years. I already mentioned the first win as an underdog status type of thing. But now we see that confidence slowly but surely returning. The swag surely returning. Same thing with Jim Harbaugh. Jimmy's getting his big boy pants back on. He's feeling himself again. That's what you want to see out of your coach, And from the fact that you had the Michigan players essentially trolling the Wisconsin fans by using their music jump around at the end of the third quarter to turn it against them. That to me speaks to the makeup and mental mindset of a team that, frankly, we did not see at all last year. And I think that could have been played into one reason why they only won 2 games, COVID or not. They were absolutely dreadful and atrocious. So the fact that they more than doubled their win total from last year, the fact that they've already are making a statement for themselves from the rest of the Big Ten, and also, oh, don't look now. Not only are they 5-0 and undefeated, not only have they yet to trail at a single solitary second at any point in the season, but thanks to some likely, thankful losses and timely losses by other teams ahead of them, guess who's ranked in the top 10 this week? Now,
Michigan.
Now you don't want to get too ahead of yourself because what? You still got a night game coming up against Nebraska. You still got MSU, and a couple weeks after that, you still got Penn State you got to deal with, and then of course the Holy Grail, Ohio State at the end of November. So everything is not completely out of the woods or feeling rosy daisies. There's still work
Michigan
to be done.
Too.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Michigan State, but yeah, there's still work to be done if you're Michigan. So you can't get too ahead of yourself. You can't keep thinking into a different mindset. You have to keep up with the consistent grind that you've had physically, mentally, that you've poured into these first 5 weeks and continue it on with each step the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's true. Just got to keep pushing through. Frank, Wisconsin's offensive line struggled. That's what led to the sacks. But Michigan's defensive line just kept pushing through, and the rest of the units just did their jobs, and they took care of business.
Well, a couple of observations I had about Wisconsin. That's probably the worst Wisconsin team I've seen probably since about 2008. That line really struggled to get a push. Their running game stunk, and I don't know what happened to Graham Mertz, but you know what? Michigan, in the words of Bachman Turner Overdrive, they were taking care of business on Saturday, and they did just that. So, got to tip my cap to them. I mean, look, as Ed mentioned, the running game had its struggles, but Cade McNamara was able to get the passing game going. He mentioned Cornelius Johnson with 2 touchdown catches, but how about Roman Wilson as well? He had himself a nice game, 6 catches, had at least 80 yards. I think he's going to be a star in the making.
He came up huge too.
Yeah. And you mentioned Michigan taking care of the football, aside from the fact that it was their third-string quarterback who threw an interception. I mean, a turnover is a turnover, but you know what? It didn't really have any impact on the final outcome of the game. And so, you have to give them their due. They took care of business, beat Wisconsin. Now it's pretty much on to Nebraska, which I think is going to be a lot tougher than people would have expected at the beginning of the year, especially, but I mean, we'll get to that a little bit later. That said, Michigan, I think, is starting to look better, her offensively and defensively as well. Daxton Hill, he also had himself a nice game as well, as Ed mentioned. And so we'll see where things go from here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. Next up for ninth-ranked Michigan now at the Nebraska Cornhuskers Saturday at 7:30. That's the kickoff time on ABC. We're going to analyze and predict it with our Viget scoring predictions. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead.
Man, this game is quite interesting, like you mentioned, and it's looked even more interesting now in the past couple of weeks. We obviously, Nebraska had that heartbreaker of a loss against Michigan State, but let's not forget of how they were so controlling and dominant and possessive of that football in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. And frankly, had it not been for Jayden Reed picking the perfect moment to break out as a potential national star, and we'll get to him in a moment, it's likely Nebraska would have won that game and would probably still be ranked, or at least close to, if not outright ranked themselves. Because to me, this is a team you do not take lightly. This is a team that knows how to. They remind me a lot of Michigan in the ways of how they want to control the ball, possess the ball, run the ball, tire you out, and when it's time, deliver the body blow, deliver the knockout shot late. So there's that, but also the wrinkle that sets them apart is their quarterback, A.J. Martinez. He's a playmaker. This is a guy who knows just knows how to make plays with the football, whether with his hands, with his arm, or with his legs. he's going to be a guy that you have to keep an eye on practically all night, whether it be setting the contained side with your edge rushers or having your linebackers, spy him up and down the middle, making sure he doesn't get away from you too fast. I think your secondary is getting more confidence, like we saw. I think you can safely assume that the Washington game did for Aiden Hutchinson what the Wisconsin game did for Daxton Hill in terms of letting himself be known to the rest of the nation, as well as getting his draft stock up at the same time. Worth noting. As for the game itself, I expect a rowdy crowd. I think much more rowdier than what we saw in Camp Randall, which is saying something, because the way they took care of of Northwestern, good Lord. So Michigan, they better be ready. They got to come ready and be as ready as they were against Wisconsin. Now, I know if you want to say, hey, Michigan State, they got through to their quarterback. They sacked them 6 or 7 times. Why can't we? Well, I think Michigan, Nebraska knows that. They've been studying upon that. And if you're smart, you can find a way to design plays, screen passes, bubbles, outside, passes instead of going right up the middle against this pass rush to where you can get the ball out of Martinez's hands and still preserve him at the same time. That being said, I think it's going to come down to which team makes the least amount of mistakes. It's going to come down to who can establish the run better. And also, always be mindful of special teams. I think Michigan, if they can get, if Jake Moody can stay consistent with his kicks, and again, field position played a big part in establishing that tone early on against Wisconsin, because it allowed the defense to really perk up their ears and go after the QB. So if they can continue that formula here, don't make mistakes, and just run the ball as well as possible. Of course, timely passes from your quarterback helps too. I think, McNamara's performance showcased that as how essential you need that to be the rest of the way, especially if you're trying to contend for a Big Ten title here. And with all that, I don't know. I don't have the spread in front of me. I don't know what it is. I would assume Michigan would be favored. At last I checked, they opened. I think there was a 5-point favorite. It may have gone up or down. I don't know. But I expect the final score, it will be close throughout the first half. I think Michigan will find its rhythm early on in the third quarter, and then they'll start to pull away. Nebraska will try to keep it close, but I think late in the fourth quarter, Michigan will find a way to put it away. So my bigger predicted score is Michigan 31, Nebraska 21.
All right. So 31-21 Michigan, says Ed. Frank, your turn. What is your Viget scoring prediction on Michigan at Nebraska?
I'm going to think this one's going to be a lot closer. I'll say Michigan wins it 31-27 over Nebraska. Look, I saw what Adrian Martinez was able to do in East Lansing when they played Michigan State. But the one thing that I do know about him, he is highly mistake prone, especially late in games. And that's why Nebraska has lost so many one-score games. They're really only a couple of plays away from being undefeated. And as I mentioned previously, this is a Nebraska team where, as much as we've said Scott Frost is on the hot seat, this team doesn't look like their coach is on the hot seat. Those guys are playing for him. They care about it. They bought in. So I'm expecting Nebraska to give their best shot in this one. And I think Martinez will make some plays, but Caden McNamara, I think, will make some plays too. But I think it'll come down to a late mistake, and Michigan will seal the win, probably with an interception, say from Daxton Hill, or maybe a late sack from Aiden Hutchinson as well. So 31-27, Michigan wins, a close one.
All right. Ed says 31-21. Frank says 31-27. I'll go 31-24 Michigan. Michigan will still seal it with an interception or a turnover on downs. One of the two could happen. Or a lost fumble recovered by Michigan's defense. So those are our biggest scoring predictions for Michigan at Nebraska. Again, Saturday, 7:30 kickoff on ABC. The Michigan State Spartans held on to beat the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers 48-31. They led 42-16 at halftime. They scored on almost all of their drives in the first half, but then things started to get a little chippy. Western Kentucky outscored Michigan State 15-6, a very low-scoring second half, but Michigan State's secondary defense was still doing its lazy thing, just letting the opposing receivers catch the ball so many times for first downs especially. And, of course, that phantom targeting flag on Halliday, which really angered me. It angered Frank. But after that, the Spartans drove down the field and sealed it with a field goal by Matt Coughlin, to go up 17. And Western Kentucky from there only had one timeout left. So we'll go to Ed and then Frank. Ed, what are your thoughts on the Spartans beating Western Kentucky?
I like the fact with that how they performed in that first half. There was no emotional come down from what that win took out of them against Nebraska last week. They were quite steady. They were composed. They did not make mistakes, or at least fewer mistakes than Western Kentucky did, and they punctuated their drives. They didn't just stop short. So for a field goal. No, they went down the field in their behinds and they scored touchdowns. This is what you need to do against a team that you're frankly seen as better as in every step of the way. So they did that. Defense I was quite happy, at least pleasantly surprised to see them doing what they did against the Western Kentucky offense that's known to go off on you at a moment's notice. So the fact they had 16 at the first half was saying something. But I think you got to give some credit to Western Kentucky as a whole. They didn't quit. They didn't stop fighting. And their quarterback, Bailey Zappi, to me, I know he's not exactly, he's probably a different breed in terms of size. He's 6'1", 6'2", but he looks, and I hate to sound like Colin Coward here, he looks what you would consider thick and chunky. He ain't exactly coastal because he's a Texas boy, but, he's a solid dude. And he's hard to bring down, and I think that helps him, withstand some of the pressure and some of the hits that he takes, because the way he was throwing dimes out there made me think, okay, I know this may be the system, but he's playing like a kid that could be playing on Sundays in the near future. That's the observation I got watching Bailey Zappi and seeing how he did against that Spartan defense. So I really can't put too much blame on Michigan State allowing the points that they did late, because most of it, or, some of it at least, you would consider garbage time points, because like you said, they were up 42-16 at halftime. The game was essentially over right then and there. So I can't beat up on them too much for allowing essentially a garbage half amount of points, and also give credit to their quarterback, Bailey Zappi, performing what he did, because I think that kid's got potential. All in all, I liked how they were able to respond essentially to how they were not going to let last week drain them. And they also weren't overlooking, to the rest of their schedule. They were focusing on their opponent, and it showed throughout. Solid win, solid performance, and it boosted it up, just like Michigan's performance and the timely losses by other teams ahead of them boosted them up the rankings. So did MSU. Now look at them knocking on the door of the top 10. Not bad for Mel Tucker in year 2.
Not bad is right. Yeah, I mean, Spartans are undefeated, just like the Wolverines. Frank, just let your heart out, but analyze it as well.
Well, from what I saw in this one, I did mention that Kenneth Walker was going to have another big game, and he did just that with 3 rushing touchdowns. But how about Jayden Reed? And that's the first time that Michigan State has had back-to-back punt returns in consecutive games for the first time since 1972, and the name escapes me at the moment. I don't have it in front of me. But I think Reed's shown that he is probably one of the best return men in the country, and I think teams are going to start saying, okay, we can't kick to him. But also Peyton Thorne, another solid outing as well at quarterback. He takes care of the ball. I mean, as for Western Kentucky, I know people are going to say, oh, well, they gave up 31 to a Conference USA team. Well, you're going to give up points when you got a team that's going to throw the ball about 70 times a game. So I knew they were going to be a tough matchup to play against, and, they handled their business. I mean, yeah, they gave up a little bit more than I would have liked to in the second half, but, at the end of the day, you still got to play them, and you played 60 minutes of football. Now, as for the phantom targeting call on Cal Halliday, I will say there were some words that I can't repeat here about it, but I mean, look, I don't mean to go off subject, but this whole targeting call in college why can't they make it more like high school in the NFL, where it's only an ejection if it's deemed flagrant in nature? Because that was the furthest thing from flagrant I've ever seen.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
understand wanting to protect the player, whether it be the quarterback or the defenseless player, but that you got to have levels and degrees to that, just like what we see, like you mentioned in the NFL or in the NBA, even with the flagrant fouls. They know what's, for the most part, they're able to rightly classify what's a flagrant 1, what's a flagrant 2. Why can't that be the same here?
Well, how about even in the NHL with the whole illegal check to the head rule? Yeah. There's certain aspects of that have to be fulfilled. I mean, if we're looking at it that way, Halliday didn't lead with the crown of his helmet. He didn't make any direct contact. He made an attempt to avoid. Yeah, his arm got the guy, but that was far from intentional or reckless.
Yeah. Right. Not to mention the embellishment penalty. That gets on my nerves. The way it's implemented, players falling accidentally from hooking or tripping, and they get called for embellishment anyway because they didn't do a damn thing.
Basically, they're trying to say, "Oh, you're flopping," even though they don't have the proper proof.
Yeah, when they're actually hooked or tripped, that is not a flop, for God's sake.
Right.
It isn't.
This is not the NBA where you gotta do is blow wind on a dude and he just flies away from you 3 feet.
The hell it's not. It's not.
By the way, quick note. I will mention, you talked about, Frank, about Jayden Reed, of how, people, teams are going to start scheming and trying to game plan. We can't kick to him. Well, if you're not going to kick to him, you know what the offense is going to do? They're going to put his ass out there as a wide out, and they're going to throw the ball to him. So you still got to keep him in open space.
Exactly.
That is what you call an X factor. And when you have him in that same offense, and Kenny Walker's doing what he's got to do, Peyton Thorne is taking care of business. He's not making dumb mistakes. He's not being a Brian Lewerke, thank God. When you have all that consideration, you have a functional offense. And all you needed, if you're a Michigan State fan, you know your identity. You want to be known as a tough, no-nonsense defensive team. As long as your offense is being sensical and functional, you should be expecting performances like this year in, year out.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
But with that said, had Michigan State 5-0 for the first time since 2015, up to 11 in the coaches poll. And also, fun fact, there's now 5 Big Ten teams basically in that top 11 and in the coaches poll as well. So, and 4 of them are from the East Division. So the Big Ten East is definitely back.
It's giving me feels reminders of what we just saw this past season with basketball.
Oh yeah, I can definitely go along with that. But as a Michigan State fan, I'll just say we're on to Rutgers.
Yeah.
Let's
bring on Rutgers right now. Spartans are now 11th ranked after their win over the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Next game at the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, as just mentioned, Saturday at noon on the Big Ten Network. Let's analyze and predict with our Viget scoring predictions. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, go ahead.
I think you should expect this game to be much more similar to what we saw against Nebraska. You have a mobile quarterback, in a spread offense that knows that has the experience, that knows what to do, and this isn't his first big game this season that he's played. I bet this isn't his first big game against a team from the state of Michigan that he's played this season. So, going back to what he did last year against Michigan and how he, was almost let the team down on the game-tying score for this year against Michigan, that experience is going to come into play for him, and it's going to, put him in that trajectory of what we saw Adrian Martinez do. The question is, will there be a back-breaking turnover or mistake that might soil that performance the way we saw again for Nebraska? So there's that to look out for. If I'm Michigan State, I would be a little bit weary of my secondary. Like, if my front line can't get to the quarterback the way we saw against Nebraska, and we're leaving my secondary out there, that could be potential bad news. So keep an eye out on that. I would still find as many ways as I possibly could to get both Kenneth Walker and Jayden Reed involved as much as possible. I'm talking, swing passes out the backfield, screen passes, motion, do whatever you can, because those are your two best weapons, period, on your team. And it just so happens that one of them can also return kicks for a living. So if Rutgers and Shiano and crew is going to do their best to scheme and try to neutralize one of your best weapons, then you counteract that by putting him on some offensive snaps whenever you need a big gain or key yards. That's all you got to do. Don't put all the pressure on your running back. Don't put all the pressure on your quarterback. Keep it functional. Keep it simple. And I expect this to be a back and forth game that might go down to the wire like we saw against Nebraska. Hopefully, if Michigan State can do better in terms of better production in the second half, similar, again, I keep referring to Nebraska, but again, it just reminds me, well, again, this is their best opponent they're going to be facing since Nebraska, because Western Kentucky overall was not a better opponent. So I think I consider that a litmus test for what can you do, what can you improve upon to put you in a better position to win, where you don't have to rely on a kick return or not to rely on hoping the quarterback makes a mistake. You need a fully functional performance from all phases of your team, offense, defense, and special teams. And if you do that, you got a damn good shot pulling out the win. If you don't, makes things dicey. Bigger predicted score, I will say, though, that being said, it's close, but MSU pulls it out. I'll say my bigger predicted score is Michigan State 23, Rutgers 20.
All right, 23-20. Very close indeed. Michigan State, said Ed. Frank, your turn.
I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than what Ed said. I'm actually going to go Michigan State 34, Rutgers 24. It'll be a back and forth game. Noah Vedral, Rutgers quarterback, he can make some plays. Isaiah Pacheco, who they're going to give him the rock, whether on running plays, even passing the ball to as well. He's somebody to watch out for. But I think Michigan State's just got to keep doing what they're doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep feeding Kenneth Walker, keep getting Jayden Reed the ball, and also keep getting Trey Mosley and Speedy Naylor involved too. I think Speedy's kind of looked a little bit better too, getting the ball in short passes. I think the deep stuff really isn't his cup of tea. Mosley as well, I liked what I've seen out of him. Get him involved. And then defensively, your defensive line's got to get after Vedral. I know Drew Beasley is out indefinitely with an injury, but guys like Drew Jordan, Jeff Petrowski, Jacob Ponashuk, Simeon Barrow, Michael Fletcher, and Maverick Hansen, those guys got to step up, and they did against Western Kentucky. You got to do it again against Rutgers. And I think it'll be a close game in the fourth quarter until Mr. Walker puts it away with a late touchdown to make it a 10-point margin. So I'll go 34-24 Michigan State.
"34-24 Michigan State over Rutgers," says Frank. Ed says 23-20. I'm going to go 31 for Michigan State and 24-21 at 31-21 for Rutgers. 31-21 Michigan State. So those are our biggest scoring predictions for Michigan State at Rutgers Saturday at noon on the Big Ten Network. The Lions go 0-4, losing to the Chicago Bears 24-14 at Soldier Field. 5 trips to the red zone for the Lions offense and only 7 points. Wide receiver Khalif Raymond scoring the only 2 touchdown receptions for the Lions, and that's all the Lions could score. But the Bears jumped out to a 21-0 lead. The Lions defense just couldn't do anything in the first half, pretty much. So, Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank. Ed, not much to analyze. I don't know if Hawkinson was used more after week 3 at home against the Ravens, but go ahead.
It didn't matter. It would not have mattered whether or not you used Hawkinson better or more. I like the fact that Khalif Raymond is getting more involved. He's becoming another weapon for Jared Goff to rely upon. But here's the thing. If you have the ball on inside your opponent's 10-yard line 5 times, we're not talking inside the 20. We're talking inside the 10, near the damn goal line. You have that occur 5 times, and the most points you can get total throughout that game is 7. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your talent. There's something wrong with your execution. There's something wrong with your play calling. If you can only get one damn touchdown out of 5 trips inside the 10-yard line in 60 minutes. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. That summed up the game right then and there. You don't need to go into, well, why, they could have done this. No, it's called put the damn ball in the end zone and you win the freaking game. That's what it's called. So let's go in the fact that they had 2 or 3 turnovers every time, in the first 3 trips that they went down, including one that I can't believe this. You can put this down into the lexicon of legendary Lions lowlights when you turn the ball over on Jared Goff getting snapped essentially off of his dong and into the hands of the Chicago Bear defender. I'm like, okay, I thought the 66-yard field goal would have made me laugh my ass off. This takes the cake. So there's that. And there's the fact that your defense, I'm not going to beat up on the defense too much because despite all of that, this game could have been a lot worse. I think it's a good thing that Justin Fields is still getting his feet wet, so to speak, in terms of playing in the NFL. But it could have been a lot worse than what it looked like. And the fact that they only held them to 24 points, which still gave you a freaking chance to win, says it all. Man, oh man. Oh, okay. Oh yeah. The pièce de résistance. 4th down, 4th quarter. You're down by 10 points. It's less than 5 to 4 minutes to go. You know for sure you need points and at least one more stop to give your team one more chance. And what do? Let's go for it, baby. Let's go for it. So, okay, let me get this straight, Dan Campbell. You don't be as aggressive as possible to try to get the touchdown last week against Baltimore, where a touchdown, or at least getting a first down, all but wins you the game. But when you're down by 10, the next week, you're going to go the opposite. And I try to hear his reason and rationale. And then I remember thinking in my back of my head, okay, this is still a rookie head coach, but that's still on your other coaches to figure out, either talk you out of it or come up with a better play. And you really think passing the ball on 4th and 1, if you invested so much into this offensive line, you can't trust them to help you get 1 yard in a 4th down? Just one. We're not even talking about getting a touchdown.
Go on the run.
Just get the first down. You have Jamal Williams, for God's sakes. Why
got
not
DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. You have ways to try to put it in between the tackles here on 4th and short. That's why they're called. That's why you have the personnel that you need for situations and moments like this. But no. We're going to trust you, Jared. Throw the football. And you know what happened? You pulled the same crap that he did in Lambeau on Monday night. Overlooked an open guy over the middle. Could have had him for a first down. Could have had him for a touchdown. You know what? No. Let's go for Amon-Ra St. Brown in triple coverage. Get the hell. Oh, my God. I understand the need and want to show patience when it comes to Jared Goff, with the hopeful expectation that he's not going to be your long-term and long-time solution at quarterback. But I'm serious. My patience is already winding thin. Like, I understand the Rams lost today, and, they got props to Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals for doing so. But you know damn well if Matthew Stafford is back there, you have more confidence of that he's going to do the right thing, or at least put you in a better position, a chance to at least tie or win the game. Not Jared Goff, not Mr. Baby Hands. No. Let's throw to a guy that's in triple coverage instead of a guy that's open over the middle of the field. Let's panic as soon as you see an ounce of pressure coming your way. Oh goodness, like I mentioned it to you guys before off air, but I am dead ass when I say this. Even if you're gonna consider it for emergency situation, break in case of glass, or in case Jared Goff gets hurt, or the fact that, you know what, our backup QB position at depth at backup QB is already crap already. So why not, at the very least, give him a call, or at least for a tryout? Why not contact Cam Newton? I mean, I know you're not going to try and contact Deshaun Watson. That's a whole nother can of worms for another day. But Cam Newton's out there. I really, you really mean to tell me that Cam Newton can do worse than what we seen from Jared Goff at his lowest points and moments this year? Come on. And like I said, the same thing that we saw whenever Stafford went down, David Blau is not going to put on a cape and become Superman. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if something, God forbid, were to happen to Jared Goff, what the hell are you going to do now? What are you going to do? So all that just was like, oh, it's like this team finds somehow, some way. I actually got to give them credit for it. They find new ways to either get you angry, piss you off, or leave you absolutely bewildered and flabbergasted to the point where you can't do nothing but just laugh your ass off. Because it really is. That's the best way to keep yourself from going insane after witnessing this crap happen over and over, time after time, year after year, decade after decade.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I'm done. Y'all can continue. Like, I have to get that out of my system. Jesus.
That was legendary, Ed.
Yeah. I even tweeted on that on Twitter about you ranting about the Lions at Michigan_truth. And if Urinating Tree is watching this somehow, when he sees that highlight, he's gonna. Hopefully, he adds this. You stupid.
Please.
From The Simpsons.
Please,
trust me. The whole team played like a bunch of lolcows today. Okay, I think that fourth down call should qualify Dan Campbell for lolcow of the week.
Yes.
Either that, or Jared Goff having the football going all Simpson style, going off.
They did a tie.
And going to the Bears game. That deserves a nomination too.
Make that a freaking tie.
That was something out of the friggin' Simpsons. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Only thing missing was the sound effect when it hit Hans Moleman in the groin. That's the only thing.
Yeah. I would say, Dan Campbell, get the out of here. In the words of George Carlin.
Oh my goodness.
Your turn.
Oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna follow that up, guys. That is something else. But Ed, I do have to ask: is the crotch fumble at
close to the window?
Butt fumble?
What was that again, Frank?
Does the crotch fumble top the butt fumble?
Oh no! Nothing can't top that. You're talking Thanksgiving prime time against a division. Granted, this is a division opponent too, but come on, the expectations that the Jets had, and the fact that was the perfect symbolic representation of them hitting rock bottom and going rock bottom ever since. That's something. Oh, by the way, speaking of the Jets have got their first win of the season today.
Okay.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Continue.
I just wanted to make sure if the crotch.
No, instead of the butt fumble, it's gonna be known as the dick pick.
Oh
no! From the top rope.
Boom! Oh man, how about that?
Holy Moses! Okay, now that we've had our fun, look, I'm not really sure there's much more I can add to what Ed said, other than I'm starting to think Dan Campbell is starting to get lionized. And look, I've tried to have patience with him. Look, I admit that he basically got handed the equivalent of a fast food restaurant that was covered in diarrhea to begin with in terms of talent. But now I'm starting to realize some of the calls he's made in games, some of the decisions, it's starting to make me think, yeah, he's lionized. And hopefully he's able to pull his head out of his rear end. But I'm not starting to have as much confidence in him. And only time will tell as this season goes forward. And we'll see where it goes. And it's starting to look like that this could be a historically bad season. 0-17, maybe.
Hey, who said you can't top 0-16, baby? Who says you can't?
There you go. Oh man, can't wait for that stuff.
Only the Lions, baby. Only the Lions.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Jacksonville. Just win 2 games. All you need is just win 2 games. We'll handle the rest of the year. Or yeah, even that. Please, we'll handle that all the way to the bank. Yes, please give me all your draft capital. Please, football gods, give me something
live right now. Please spread the word. Yeah, for those watching live right now, please spread the word. Yes. So the Lions, next game, next Sunday at 1 on Fox at US Bank Stadium against the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, the Vikings lost to the Cleveland Browns 14-7. That's what I heard. But I think that was a defensive game, as I saw on CBS over the air before it started to rain and cloud over me, taking away my TV antenna signal. But when I was trying to watch Steelers at Packers. But anyway, the Vikings defense is going to keep on bringing it while the Lions offense continues to be a pop gun, while their defense continues to do its lazy thing, allow points and allow opposing receivers and whatnot. So, Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Frank with our Viget scoring predictions with analysis. Ed, go ahead.
The analysis is: is Dalvin Cook playing? Is he available? Is he healthy enough to play? If he is, get ready, because you gave up over 180 some odd yards running on the ball today against Chicago. Imagine what Dalvin Cook is going to do to you next week. Oh, joy! And Kirk Cousins, who is obviously a much more seasoned quarterback than a rookie, Justin Fields. Imagine what he's going to do having time in the pocket. Frankly, if they have the same hilarious turnovers, or at least a turnover or two that was similar to what we saw today, next week, it's going to get worse, because this is not a team that is still struggling to find himself. This is an established and developed team within your own division that knows how to play fundamental football. So what they're going to do is, you turn the ball over, you're going to take that ball, ram it down your throat, and do it over and over and over again. So that being said, knowing that this team can barely function like a flat rear tire, oh God, what is the score going to be to this? You know what? Let's just keep it simple. Bigger predicted score: Vikings 34, Lions 17. That's how I'm feeling. That's what I'm stamping. I'm done talking about this crap.
Yeah, I feel you. 34-17 Vikings, says Ed. Frank, your turn.
Dalvin Cook or no Dalvin Cook, I still think the Vikings win this. They're going to run it. Kirk Cousins is going to make more plays. I'll just say Vikings win it 28-13.
28-13, says Frank. I'm going to go Vikings 31, Lions 14. I'm going to go 31-14 Vikings, 3-possession game for the Vikings. Those are Viget's scoring predictions for Lions at Vikings and for all games as well. And the Lions, too little, too late, but before the Bears game, they cut veteran linebacker Jamie Collins. So that's done and over with. They were looking to trade him, but they didn't find a trade partner, so they cut him. Simple.
And now that's more dead money under cap.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to hockey, Red Wings also started 3-0 on the offseason, but got shelled by the Pittsburgh Penguins at PPG Paints Arena 5-1. But Red Wings forward Jakub Vrana out at least 4 months after undergoing shoulder surgery. Ed, you pointed out that he went to see a specialist, that it was going to be serious, and this confirms how serious this is. Out at least 4 months. So
yeah, exactly. They deemed it worthy enough. There's been enough essential damage to where, yeah, you're going to need to go into the night for this one, and you're going to be out for some time. I'd rather they catch it now. That way you can still have him come back later in the season than have this occur, at a point somewhere while we're into the season, and he can potentially miss, the rest of the year. So I'd rather you catch it now than have it happen later on. But still, that's a hit to your team, because he was doing quite well with production, especially after the trade that brought him here last year. And losing him is going to suck. So I wouldn't say thin in terms of needed positions, needed players at key positions, but this was one injury that you did not need it to have had happen to you, for sure. So best of luck, Jakub. Hope you get well, and hope to see you back on when the time is right.
Yep, indeed. Frank, your thoughts?
Well, it's obviously a big blow to the Red Wings, because Vrana, I thought, was going to be their best player going into the season. But I do think that this could possibly open the door for Lucas Raymond to be skating with the big club. I know it's preseason, but he's looked good skating with Dylan Larkin and Philippe Zadina
Mm-hmm.
in the first
Yeah, he
couple
scored at least
games.
1 or 2 goals.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if he makes a good enough impression on Jeff Blashill and Steve Yzerman, I think he'll possibly be in there. I mean, even Bobby Ryan could be somebody who holds a spot down, but only time will tell. Well, from here on out, is he won't be back till February. Not that the Wings are going to be expected to contend for a playoff spot this year, but it sucks having him not there.
Right. And then the Pistons hire former going to work Piston Ben Wallace as a scout. So Ben Wallace held down the fort during the NBA draft lottery, which the Pistons won earlier this summer. So
Not
great to
only
have him
can
here.
not only can Ben be used as a scout, but I think his tutelage could possibly be helpful, to guys like Isaiah Stewart and even Luka Garza to an extent. I know Luka is a different type of player compared to what Ben was in his heyday, but he's still a big man and he's still a versatile player and can be as much as dependable that he can be from the outside. You're still a big guy, and if you're working near the paint, you got to use your gifts, use your advantages. And I think having Ben Wallace there could help harness that in a positive way, for sure.
Yeah. Frank, you'd
Yeah,
say the same thing.
I'd have to agree with what Ed said. It's nice to have Big Ben back in the organization after he represented the team at the lottery. Hey, have him there, scout and mentor the younger guys.
Yep. That's all there is. So that's all the teams we've covered, except the Tigers finished their season with a 5-2 win over the first place Chicago White Sox. The Tigers, let's check the standings right about now. The final standings. 77-85, third place, 16 games back of the Central. Tigers, 6 worse than the American League, 15 games back of that second wild cards behind the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, who will be playing each other in the wild card game, which is interesting. Yeah,
I think
why
we can
not?
say that the Tigers have done better than what we would have expected this year. We've seen what
Far.
AJ Hinch can do.
A lot
And we've
better.
seen the younger guys develop as well. And I think next year you had a couple of big name free agents and you bring in guys like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Next step's going to be challenge for a wild card spot at season's end.
And also, I want to see how they're going to do because we saw how things got testy between them and the White Sox last week. And I think that, was able to still linger throughout this series. So I'm sure each team took joy in beating the other just a little bit more, especially the Tigers, because essentially what they got the last laugh for this little rivalry for this season anyway. So I'm going to be real intrigued to see how that series goes, that season series between those two teams goes next year, because the White Sox should be expected to be front runners for the division again, depending on how they do in this postseason run. And the Tigers, they want to try to make that next step up, to at least contend for a wild card spot. But if they are rolling the way they were rolling through good chunks of this season, watch out if you're Chicago. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, we got Miguel Cabrera looking lively, more lively now than I've seen him look in years. Maybe it was the chase for 500, the chase for 3,000, whatever the case, or the fact that he himself has said he knows he's got 2 years left. Period. It's next year, 2023, then he's donezo. So maybe that's Miggy trying to make the most of it as much as he can because he knows this is his last ride, his last dance coming up. So all that factors into what I think could be a much more competitive AL Central for next year. And do not be surprised if the Tigers are in the thick of that for good points of the season.
Yeah, true. So now what I've learned, even if Wisconsin was a bad team, Michigan got at least one monkey off their back, winning in Madison for the first time since November 17th, 2001. Now they need to get their other monkey off their backs in Columbus, except that'll have to wait until next year, the opportunity itself. Ed, you're next, and then we'll go to Frank. What did you learn, Ed?
What I learned this week is that the Lions are apparently forever cursed. Michigan State is looking to be
Well,
making
not
some
cursed, but run into the ground by the Ford family since 1963. There is no curse.
same thing. The Spartans are looking to be well ahead of schedule to trying to make some noise a year or two earlier than expected. The Wolverines, I will say this is a much different team, much more different mental makeup, far different than what I've seen in a couple years now. It's not quite 2016, not quite 2018, where the hype was at its apex, but it's certainly better mood than what we've seen in 2019 or in 2020. So that is to look out for. I don't know if it's the players really are playing for Jim Harbaugh, or that's just the whole mentality or the culture that's been established within the team. But wherever it is, keep that stuff up, boys. Go blue.
Yeah. See, the difference between the curse of Bobby Lane and the ineptitude of the Ford family is because, curses like happen like imaginarily, but ineptitude is in reality, for real, by the Ford family. Frank, what did you learn?
Well, what I've learned this week, and I'll just keep it to football, I don't think the Lions are cursed. They're just inept and will continue to be inept until the Ford family gets rid of the team, which I'm really not having any hope is going to happen anytime soon. Just got to pray for it. And as for the college teams in the state, it's actually fun having both Michigan State and Michigan winning games, looking a lot better than last year. Michigan appears to be getting back on the right track with Harbaugh and with Cade McNamara at quarterback. And Mel Tucker's first real year, because last year was kind of year zero because he didn't really get to know his entire team. You're seeing what he can do with a complete offseason, getting with his guys, putting stuff in, and all that good stuff. And let's just say October 30th should be a good one.
Can't wait for that one. Cannot wait for that one.
Absolutely.
Me either. We all can. So, before we go, the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Stables Media is sponsored by the Viget Sports mobile app, where great fans cover. Use the hashtag #GreatFansCover on social media to support the mobile app. Download it from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Sign up and type in the referral code STABLES with a capital S and the rest of the letters being lowercase, including the letter B in the middle as in billionaire for Stables Media. Also, a shout out to Cali Tickets for sponsoring the Detroit Sports Rag. Visit CaliTickets.com or call 877-225-8425. That's 877-225-8425 to purchase tickets to go see one of their featured events. Gentlemen, excellent job as always, especially that rant on the Lions and Dan Campbell. Our next episode, next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the dot. Be there or be square. Until then, for Ed Smith and Frank Vasher, this is Taylor Phillips signing off. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter and Instagram at EdSmith313. And follow Frank Vasner on Twitter and Instagram at Frank_Vasner, VAJCNER. And follow our show, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like it on Facebook as the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and follow it on LinkedIn as the same name. Thanks very much for listening, watching, downloading, and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Power to the people. Hit them with a high. We rest our case. Stay out of trouble.